and gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They're here.
All right, peace, family, peace. It's your brother Satep and Rod Mary Amen. And today we are doing the destruction of Black civilization, chapter 9. We done made it to chapter 9, y'all. Central Africa, evidence from a small state. I got some of my brothers on the panel. I got Sutek, I got T'Challa, I got Sean. What's up, Sean?
What up? What up? Good. Black African Power, everybody.
All right. What's up, Sutek?
Peace. Share Lafayette. Peace to the chat. Peace to the those that will come and view this in the archives. Make sure once y'all come in, you like and share the show. We back at you again. We about to get into chapter 9 of The Great Ancestor, Chancellor Williams, Destruction of Black Civilization. Again, make sure y'all like and share the show, man. If y'all come in, please.
We got my brother T'Challa Bangara. What's up, T'Challa?
Peace. You know, that next chapter in that great work, there's so many act like they read, but we know they don't read. You know, let's get it. It's a good chapter right here, too. So, let's get into it. Like and share the show, family.
All right. So where we at, Sean? You still sliding around, or you stationary? Shout out to Jolanda. What's up, Vasa? What's up, Neon, man?
I'm in the crib.
All right, man. I know Kofi said he running around or whatever, man. There was some stuff in here I wanted Kofi to deal with in here. So Kofi, I'm gonna have to get on you about that. But where we at, Sean? I know your book probably marked up as well too.
Central Africa, evidence from a small state.
Yeah, man. We talking about Cuba.
Yeah, it's Cuba time, man. Not many people really talk about Cuba, depending on the perspective or their involvement in history on a world stage. But it's some small jewels in here, man. You know what I'm saying? At the beginning of the chapter, if we want to start at 220. Now, before we do anything here, you see the first, pretty much you see the at the top of the page, see the prophecy of the Masi, right? Now, remember, we left the last chapter, which we were dealing with West Africa. Then we ended up with the Masi, and then we roll over the prophecy of the Masi into the next chapter. Why would you think that we would actually see this prophecy lingering in Central Africa? And here's why. He opens up the chapter with something very important. So again, we got the prophecy of the Masi at the top in a chapter unrelated to the Masi. All right, because he's trying to tell you when the first white man appears in the land, the nation will die. We must not lose sight of what we are doing. The important points of what we have been doing. A partial view of the early history of the Blacks from the loss of Egyptian homeland to the coming of the Europeans has been presented through a summary study of a representative number of states. A countrywide view of what happened to the whole by looking at typical situations. We saw a people forever migrating, forever on the move, forever in flight from the threats to survival. A new location found, sighs of relief, and thanksgiving for a new breathing spell, and new efforts of reunification and state building all over again. But every decade of unsettled life, every decade of wandering over deserts, savannas, and through the forest, Every such decade was one of the retrogressions of disintegration, decades of decline, and no newly established state was able to reach the levels of achievements of the past before it was engulfed in either by the Islamic East or the Christian West. This is what we have witnessed. No matter what black state was studied or in what region of Africa it was located. Now, he cites Jan Vasina, which says has done pioneering and most outstanding oral history studies in this area. He said, I draw heavily on his field studies here, although and perhaps because my own field work in the region, I interpret some of his data differently. And then he tell you to see the bibliography for the notes. What we get in regard to the kingdom of Kuba is the same scenario over and over again. And this one is, leaning toward the prophecy of the Mahdi and the coming of the European and the Arab East. So I think that, in this very first paragraph of the chapter, he's designating what we're about to anticipate the rest of the chapter, the coming of Islam and the Portuguese coming from the West. Now, when he says Christian West, he is specifically speaking about the involvement of the missionaries and traders that are coming into the region and have invaded the West and are bringing their cross with them into the central state. Islam coming from the east, whether it was through the Sahara or North Africa into the west and then into the central, or through the Trans-Saharan into the central, or directly from the east into the central. No matter which way we go, we have foreigners invading the land, and Kuba is the central spot, or the last spot really to encounter both waves in the instance.
Yeah, Sean, I like what I like down here is how he talks about it, and you went over it, but he talks about how they ain't had no choice because you was either getting hit by the Islamic East or the Christian West. Like they right in the middle. We talking, like you said, we talking about Central Africa. So you either gonna be, and we talk about this all the time, you either gonna be a Muslim, you're gonna convert to Muslim or Islam, or you're gonna convert to Christianity. One of the two, man. So yeah.
And then then he shows you the map and the location of everything. But on 222, he begins to continue, building on the momentum from 220. And he says one of these wandering groups, unlike the Congolese and Angolians, began to migrate from the Atlantic seaboard before the whites arrived, was free from contact with them much longer, and therefore founded a new nation and lasted much longer. The core group was made up of blacks who came to be known as the Bushings. They were moving from place to place toward the interior and finally began the development of the new state during the period when the white man's storm clouds were slowly rising in all directions. The 200 years between 1475, the most critical in the history of the blacks. It was during this period that the great noose of encirclement was completed and fixed, and the blacks of Africa found themselves hemmed and threatened from all directions, from the north, from the east, from the west, and finally from the south. The white man's march toward world conquest and world domination was in full swing. The most critical period in the history of the race, I say, was such because this closing in on the blacks from all directions was the beginning of the final death blows to what remained of their own civilization. This is a pivotal moment. Like he said, this is a pivotal moment in world history. The last hiding spot, pretty much, and I'm saying hiding spot for African culture and traditions existed in the Central Africa. Lo and behold, you had these whites plotting and planning to get into the Central State and deal with what they needed to deal with to try to wreak shop and take over that land. Now, why would they be even pursuing Kuba is something unique, and we'll learn that later on in the other chapters. But I'm gonna pause right there because I think that the way that it starts and then where we are right now sets up what he says in the third paragraph.
Yeah, Sean. I'm on 222 as well, And I got it in my notes where down here, let's see the second paragraph. It's towards the bottom. It says, let's see, face of such overwhelming. Rather, the drive must be to secure these guns. Well, I might as well just go ahead and start on at the top. Just let y'all know what they talk about. All right, there were dire consequences in terms of their psychological impact on Africans under perpetual danger. A few fatalism emerged that carried the sentence of ultimate doom to the minds of thousands. Some gave up resistance to anything, including a resistance to and resistance to the barbarism that engulfed those who either went backwards, or stood to the mental fee. Some tried to save themselves by serving the invaders' cause. I go with the Stockholm syndrome. Invaders' cause, even if it meant enslaving and killing their own people. That's messed up. Some believe that because the white man came with big ships and shaking guns, surely there must be the gods of the world. So they think because they came in with the big ships and the guns and the cannons and all that, they thought they was the gods of the world. Others saw no sense in trying to maintain unity in the face such of overwhelming odds. Rather, the drive must be to secure these guns and ammunition from the whites, even if it meant caselessly wars to secure the slaves the whites demanded. Secure them by warning on their own kinsmen, in neighboring territories, and still others resolved never to yield, to move and keep on moving rather than to submit. Rebuild and keep rebuilding, never give up, and to fight for unity as the only route to survival. Voluntary unity, if possible, unity by force if all else fails. These last others were to the ones who had spirit that accounts for the survival of the most bruised and battered of the races of mankind. So I like what he talks about in here in this specific chapter about how they was going to get the guns because they needed the guns. They like, we don't care if we got to sell other black folks. We need these guns if we gonna be the guys of the world that we can see and touch and feel. So they knew they needed guns to get on the level of the Europeans. So they didn't care if they had to sell their own kinsmen. You know what I'm saying? So I found that very shocking in this paragraph here.
Yeah. So let's lay the law. Let's lay the law of the land down, and let's not sugarcoat anything. All right. If you're in a war with an enemy and you don't have any natural resources to obtain the weaponry that you need to advance your people further or to maintain a defense, to keep your culture, your traditions, your way of life intact, you're going to be stretched so thin that you have no choice but to break or buckle at the knees. Now, the break and buckle at the knees required you to do something that you did not want to do. Now, let's just be honest, man. Africans are tribal people. So to them, when they're selling someone that so-called may be a kinsman, it could be a neighboring tribe. You're at war with these people and it's unjust. But this is how we get catapulted into the slave trade, right? This is when we get into selling each other. Is when we have stretched our resources so thin that we don't know any other way but to fight this man using the same type of technology that he's using to advance inward to Africa. Remember, to get to as far as Christians coming from the West or the Portuguese coming from the West, it was intricate for them to get inland. They needed to know what was going on the inside. They plotted, they strategized, they slept with African women, they bred the mixed breed. They tried to do the same game plan that took place in Kemet among the Arabs, or the Asiatics, and you know what I'm saying, and then the indigenous blacks. There was a living along the Nile before, you know, this new breed of Egyptian come to play. It's the same game. It's the same strategy, but implemented in a different way because they had the power of the gun to actually have them where initially the Arabs only had the power of the sword. But they did have some guns, but they really just had that sword that they was gave, you know, decapitating your head, get out and lay down, let's transition. But they're inland now. They're in Central Africa now. What's in Central Africa that they actually need in order to advance everything that they needed to advance?
Yeah. Go ahead, Sean.
So there's a new resource, because not just, you know, remnants of diamonds or gold or something like that. There's also rubber in Central Africa that will later be revealed and become a blessing to some of these people that needed to use it in order to move forward. So all those things was intricate here. What we are dealing with is, hey, you ain't got no choice. Give us these people, we'll give you some guns. It's a favor for a favor at this point. Now, they get the guns, right? In here, we see it. They get the guns. Now, what would they use the guns for? Is it to defend their tribe or to fight against this white man coming more and more from the west, or this Arab from the east? That's the question that needs to be answered moving forward. And I think we're going to find out in just a minute. You stopped at the bottom of 222, right?
Yeah. I ain't got nothing to probably about 225.
Okay. All right. So we really need to paint the picture and know what's actually taking place here. Now, we know around 1475, there was some type of trade going on, right? And humans began to be involved in the trade. It was no longer about resources. This is the time the Portuguese or the Europeans had just discovered how to cross sail. What do I mean by cross sail? They discovered a technology in the 15th century that allowed them to reverse sail. Whereas before that discovery, they could not reverse sail and would find themselves trapped and having to travel back a different path to get where they needed to go or cross over places they were trying to go. Sean, what are you saying? If they tried to steer those ships that they came down into West Africa with too far outside of the little I forgot the name of the zone where it's closer to the land and then out from the ocean where you actually can hug and you can drag pretty much up and down that area. But if you got no. When the Portuguese came down, hold up, let me put on that. Oh, just so everybody can actually get an understanding of exactly what I'm talking about. I'm gonna share my screen real quick so y'all know what I'm talking about, because this is important. Everybody need to know what's going on. This is the jack move right here. All right. So all right, here go the picture. Now they coming through the Mediterranean into the Atlantic. Now, if you see my cursor, if you can see my cursor, ladies and gentlemen, they are not out here. They're not out here in the Atlantic. They're not out here in the Atlantic. They right here, where the water is not so deep and it's still shallow, and they can keep coming close. They call this something, but I can't think of the name of it right here, where you're not up against, you're in this shallow part of the Atlantic, but your ship can still sail. If they got too far out here, they were gone. Because up here, the crosswinds would take the ship and send it in multiple directions and destroy the ship. They couldn't do nothing with that. They didn't have the technology. So they hugged right down through this pipe. You see where it's shallow coming off that coastline? I think that's what it might be called, a coastline. But right down that coastline, that's where all them ships kept on coming. They went out here. Now, once they got that technology to where when they got down here and they reverse sail to come back, they can reverse sail and come back across the winds, but then they can come out a little further into the water. And that technology allowed them to get deeper into the Atlantic. And it was until the 15th century they were able to cross the Atlantic. So in 1475, the age of discovery is kicking in. They're going back and forth across the waters. They have now encountered a whole new people, bodies is instrumental because the people they encounter can't do nothing they need them to do. So who they looking for? They looking for us. They got the declarations and documentations and all kind of signed treaties and all of that to come and slay these Africans, especially these people who did not practice Christianity. And the Muslims were still trying to slang us and send us through the Trans-Saharan. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We fighting a battle on two fronts. We fighting a Trans-Saharan trade and we fighting a transatlantic trade. Disproportionately, that's what he's saying at the beginning in this opening couple of pages. We're in two wars. We're literally in two wars.
Hey, Sean, and I just want to bring it up to date. You know what happened to Germany? You know
go
what
ahead.
happened to Germany? You know what happened to Germany? They had to fight. They fought the U.S. and Russia. You fighting the West and the East. You know what's gonna happen. You're bound to lose.
Bound to lose. You're bound to lose. So that's exactly what was going on here. Now, if you look at this map, I like this map. It's labeling everything real nice and dandy, right? But now we know we're in Central. We know we're in Central, so we over here. We're in Central. All right. They was up here in the West, but now they're in the Central, right? You got these people that were coming from this direction, sliding through, the Muslims sliding through. So they gang banging on us. They got us cornered from all four directions. They got us cornered now. You ain't got no choice but to bust a move. But the move that they made was already a destructible move, because here's what he says. There was dire consequences in terms of their psychological impact on Africans under perpetual danger. A new fatalism emerged that carried the sentence of perpetual danger. A new fatalism emerged that carried the sentence of ultimate doom to the minds of thousands. So right there in that very first sentence, he laid it up, and exactly what Setepenra just said to y'all. He labeling up right there. But what's key is when you get into the bottom of the page and it goes, such a representative group were the Bushings. They were the record will show as the Portuguese slave raids spread, the Bushings moved inland from the Atlantic. So when he says this, they move inland from the Atlantic. So they here. They start moving inland. They going in this direction over here. They trying to get away from the people that's coming from the coastline, because now they didn't figure out how to get all the way down here. Initially, they weren't even going below Senegal. And then they slowly crept down to Guinea. And then Sierra Leone, what is known today as Liberia, and the Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Togo, all of that. They slowly began to come down this way when the Portuguese initially started here. Now, it says they were headed toward the Congo region. Here we go. They were headed towards, so you got right here, the Republic of Congo, and you got the Congo right here. So now they were headed toward the Congo region. Fleeing from the whites was not the only problem for them, as it was not the only problem for the millions who had trampled over Africa before them. When they had settled on the lower Kwango early in the 16th century, their immediate foes were the fierce Jago warriors, a roaming tribe that seemed to be more interested in raids of destruction than in settling anywhere. They were destroyers, not builders, and they were set on the course to prevent others from settling and building. And while large groups of them did split off from the main body to merge with others and form states, they seemed to be nothing more than less than a bloodthirsty barbarians who engaged in warfare for the sheer thrill of warfare. These eventually opened a warfare against the Bushing, a state that was forming over a wide area along the Kwango. Under relentless and savage attacks by the Jonga warriors, the Bushings were forced to retreat along the Kasai-Sangara rivers. Now, we can't see the rivers, but when we're going up through here, you know, you're going to see some little water right here. But, you know, more so along these lines, you're going to see some water somewhere over here in this area where they're running into, and then some water, some slight little water in this area over here too. So, the main body, well, hold on, I'm skipping a little bit because I don't want to get too far into that.
Hey, Sean, you know what? You probably could have just pulled up map of Cuba. Yeah. Because it would have probably pulled up that, and it had, because on page 220, you know, it got the map with them rivers and them lakes on it. You might type kingdom or something like that. Yeah. It look like it there, ain't it?
Yep. Yep.
It's basically the Democratic Republic of Congo. So
Yep. There you go. Dang it. Let's see if I can get this map up. If it's gonna come up right here. Sheesh. Nope. There we go. Let's see if we can make it bigger. All right, so there we go, y'all. So we see all these lakes and all this stuff going around. Now, they running for cover. They staying close to water and they retreating from the Atlantic. You see over here where it say Atlantic. So they retreating. Now, it says, now they being attacked by, another tribe pretty much, the Jaga warriors, who stayed in constant beef. They got the white man on their ass. They got the Arab on their ass from a whole nother direction. They just hanging on for dear life. It says the Bushings was forced to retreat along the Kasai and Sangora rivers. Many groups splitting off from the main body and going in different directions. The main body, led by its chief Wu, entered the plain of Ayul and Kasai and began a formation of little-known state during the third quarter 16th century. It is precisely because it was small and generally unheard of that I selected it for a summer study. There was another reason. It was typical of hundreds of other small black states, which, unlike the world-renowned Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, the migrating blacks had built all over Africa, but which seemed to be so significant to conquering Europeans that they were swept away. Their people scattered with no Vancenas to seek out its oral history to hear how things came to be, what was achieved or failed to be achieved before death came to their society at last. And then, it gives us a sentence after it says the little kingdom of Cuba, then having its history recaptured, will be telling their story also, telling it substantially as it was in all fundamental particles. So I just wanted y'all really to just kind of understand what we're dealing with here. You're dealing with a people who is all over here, right? We ain't saying Angola. We talking Congo, all right here, Congo, right? You start seeing these little states, small little city states and all of that nature, but they start fleeing and they kept running inland. You know what I mean? They trying to stay close to water because what do Africans do best? What do they do best?
Fish, grow crops, agriculture.
There you go. Right? So this is in Angola right now. This is what they do best.
yeah, I actually seen this this documentary right here, and it was pretty fascinating. And they actually was talking about how it's not that many fish in that river that the people can get because it's been overfished so much. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good documentary there.
Right. So there you go with Kasai right here. Right. And they say the Sangu River. So here you go. Like I said, coming away from the Atlantic, and this the first river that they're trying to get to. Right. And then they call it Sankura here, but it's like the Sangu. These two rivers, the KNS in this area. So they fleeing. They done got way from the Atlantic, way from the Atlantic to over here. And then they running into a whole nother people. So that's really, man, it's just painting a picture. Now, I don't know if anybody else got something. I'm gonna mute out, but I'm gonna leave the map up in case we need to come back to it.
What you got, Sutag?
Nah, man, y'all good, bro. I ain't got much on this.
All right, so I'm gonna continue then.
Hold on, where you at though, Sean?
I was on 223. I'm on 224.
Okay, all right, go ahead, because I got something on 225.
Yeah, I remember you saying on 225. So the second paragraph, it says, from the very beginning, the core group of Bushings set an example for nation building for all Africa, but few African states ever followed it. First of all, the total population at the formation of Federal Kingdom can be estimated at between 75,000 to 100,000, of which number the Bushings were 80%. All the other tribes combined, therefore, were only 1/5 of the total population. This means that even under the most liberal democratic system, the Bushians could have dominated and ruled all the other tribes by the sheer weight and power of overwhelming numbers. They did not choose to do so. Here was what might be considered to be a justifiable location to depart from the traditional African constitution with its all embracing democratic system. Quite the contrary, they followed it to the letter by simply transforming the village council of elders into a council of state, in which each tribe, now constituting a constituent province, was represented as an equal by its own chief or representative of its choice. The members of the state council were the electors who chose the king, as it was throughout Africa, and the council represented the people. And therefore, all powers not delegated rested with the council. The significance of this was that the smallest tribe of the council of the Bushian group was about 80% of the population, a situation which head counters might criticize as the very antithesis of democracy. I find this quite unique that even under brutal circumstances, with all the invasion and the persuasion of religion, Abrahamic religions on the brink, and a neighboring tribe constantly at warfare and conflict with you, pretty much to keep up its strength and prowess, entertaining the Portuguese and other European nations who have come in with the persuader of, we need some bodies. So they were going to these particular locations to enslave, but through all of that, man, they were able to build what they actually were able to build. And, like Chancellor said in this chapter, was on this particular page right here, they set up a blueprint on how to actually, continue to have your culture and your traditions intact while still under the invasion of intruders. And that's by centralizing yourselves. Now, there's another thing that was, I would say, convenient for them. And I'm going to show you right now what was convenient for the Bushians. The forestry. When you think about the Congo, you think the first thing that comes up to your mind is like the forest regions. The forest regions in the Congo, right? So you got the forest regions of the Congo and people living like similar to the pygmy right here, right? They ducked off in their own little places and they can defend themselves against nature, and they got you too scared to come in there because you don't even know what's back off in there. It's gorillas, it's all kind of snakes, it's all kind of traps. You don't know what you're gonna run into back here. Like, these people could protect themselves in the forest regions. They couldn't protect themselves if they were closer to that Atlantic or exposed to something that didn't let them seek cover. But that's really where I'm gonna end that right there, Satep and Rod, and I'm gonna let you go ahead and get it in.
Yeah, so I want to go over to 225. We're gonna deal with this the first paragraph in it. Because he gets to talking about Kashan, you kind of talk about democracy, and he get ready to say something real pivotal right here to where we just went through something like this, and a lot of people was on the fence about it. So I'm gonna pose a question after I read this. All right, so it says there are 5 rulers during the short period of time, between 19 years. 1568 and 1586, one being a woman. It is known whether the council sitting as a college electoral. Now remember that word, college electoral, because this is something this is a system that we have in place right now. Our current president is being seated based off the college electoral votes. And I know a lot of people, they oppose the college electoral because it's not the popular vote. So a president can still be a president. He can still win the seat, even though he didn't get the popular vote. And we are the popular vote. We the people are the popular vote. But the college electoral. Let me actually share my screen because I want to show y'all this. Let's see. All right, you see this?
Yeah.
All right, it says how does the college electoral work? This is from BBC News or BBC.com/news. It says the number of electorals from each state is roughly in line with the size of its population. Each state gets as many electoral as its lawmakers in the U.S. Congress representative, and this is the House and the Senate. So, for example, California has the most electors, 55, while a handful sparsely populated states like Wyoming, Alaska, and North Dakota, Washington D.C. have a minimum of 3. All right, so there are 538 electorals in the total, and this is what you need to win, 270. So it's just a little map right here, just going through, just showing you, how widespread it is, and this is the reason why they had these college electorals is because, a president he may come tour up here, he may hit New York because it's a lot of people that live in New York. So he may hit New York, he gonna hit this whole coast. He gonna slide down here to Florida, but he may not come over to little Wyoming because it ain't that many people that live in Wyoming. He know, like, why would I go to Wyoming? I ain't got to worry about these people over here. All I got to do is hit this coast right here, hit Texas. So that's the reason why they got that college electoral in place. And we had it in Africa as well. So, all the people that's opposed to the college electoral, okay, we need to talk to the people that we elected up here. We need to talk to the people up here, the representatives in the House and the senators. Every U.S. Every state has people in the House and the Senate. So these are the people that ultimately represent our vote and elect the president. So I just want to let y'all know that, and talking about the same thing in this book. So let's keep it pushing. Set what seems to indicate 4-year terms. So they have 4-year terms. So it's looking to me like we see where the U.S. got the democracy from. It's looking like they got it from old Cuba in the Congo. All right, after 1586, longer but still fixed terms for kings or queens also seem to be indicated. It appears that these limits terms of office by kings continued during the supremacy of council. For a long time, kings For a long time, 10 years in office seemed to be the limit. This brings us to a third reason for selecting Cuba as both a sample and example state. And I got this in quotations here. Cuba shows how the blacks themselves do undermine and destroy some of their own best institutions and replace black democracy with black autocracy with the slightest internal influence or aid whatsoever. So black autocracy. What is black autocracy? What is the word autocracy? Let's just look that up. Let me go to let me see what that is, because this is key right here. Let me see. And it's basically worshiping one person. This is what happens, and I'm gonna give y'all some examples. All right, let me share my screen. I just did a Google search. Boom. Autocracy. A system of government by one person with absolute power. So in this sense, he says, what is what is more and often overlooked, a king may become deposit by will, and more often the development is, hold on, man, I'm on the wrong whole paragraph. Cuba shows how the blacks themselves do undermine and destroy some of their own best institutions and replace black democracy with black autocracy without the slightest external influence whatsoever. So we don't need no influence because we automatically are people that just like to worship one person. Like we automatically like it. That's how it was so easy for Christianity and Islam to come in, because we naturally just want to worship one person, and we do that. And one of the examples is what's that? Dr. York. Dr. York is a perfect example of black autocracy. That was one of my examples that I had, to where he is a person that wanted to be the system of one person with absolute power, and we know that ain't right. So and he didn't need no outside forces to help him to try to achieve that. He did it on his own merit. So that's it for that on page 225. I just wanted to deal with that college electoral and black autocracy. I wish Brother Chris was on here, because I know the upcoming pages, he started getting to talk about political organizations and government and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right up Chris Allen as far as political infrastructure and then how they form the government. But I mean, I really don't have anything on that one, because I really don't like to really just get into all of that. It's pretty much structured like the Council of Elders. You know what I mean? They're basically their political structure. Like I said, on the 226, the first paragraph on the political structure tells you exactly how it's set up. It says the political structure actually began with the family council or clan council, which is the basic social unit of kinsmen. During the formative period of the state, each clan had its own village. As new immigrants swelled villages into towns and cities, these became divided into clan sections or wards. Each ward set its elders as a representative to the village, town, or city council, over which presided the village headsman, town sub-chief, or city chief. These chiefs, in turn, served as representatives of their areas and, on the preventive council over the paramount chief of the whole tribe presided. The paramount chiefs on the central provinces or states, the original 18 founders, represented their provinces in the Central State Council, over which the elected king of Cuba presided. So that gives you an idea of how this thing was set up. Now, on 227, it says the council state, the king presided, the linguist interpreting the special aid to the king. Then you had the chief of the chiefs, which was the prime minister, right? And then you had the governors of the provinces, which is the paramount chiefs. And then two, you had the administrators, not members of the state's council, which was pretty much the first chief of the treasury, the board of defense, the supervisor general of tax, collections, goods, and services, the chief of the kings and household to protect the ancestral. Listen to this: the chief of the king's household and protector of ancestral tombs and regalia. The chief of the roads and the markets, the collector general of the tributary states. This office was created in the wake of the Imbong and the Legal imperialist expansion in 1650. And that's pretty much how they did it. So this thing was, it was still traditional in the sense of how Africans, societies maintained or set up themselves, but that's exactly how it stayed and how it operated. And I'll leave that on that part, and I'll skip ahead to deal with the cultural or traditional beliefs of the Cuba. There was no problem.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move ahead a little bit. What page you on, Sean?
229.
Okay, yeah. Let's go ahead and move ahead, because they get ready to talk about this ancestor worship and all that.
Facts. So it's like there was no problem of religious unity in Cuba because there was no problem of religious conflicts in traditional Africa. The blacks, having a common origin and a common center of civilization, had the same fundamental religious beliefs throughout the continent, just as all of their other basic institutions were similar. That's key. Remember what he's saying now. The inevitable variations were insignificant when compared with the universal similarities. The Cubans believed, as all Africans believed, in one almighty God, the creator of the universe. There were numerous ways of expressing the one God concept. He might be identified with the sun and called the sun god, or as a variation of this, he might be called the sky god. The numerous other gods, far as being in conflict with the great God, was a necessary part of his divine plan. His own deputies and emissaries who had the direct charge of the various departments of life that concern human needs: the earth, soil, water, illness, health, fertility, planting, harvest, and the forest, war, hunting, fishing, rain, etc. If you listen to what he's saying in the very first paragraph, does it not sound like the political structure that we just read regarding how they set up their political structure in Cuba? All right, just a little hint. Now, there was lesser gods under these. Their rank of importance is determined by the role and extent of their role. Different tribes might have different tribal gods, or ground of kindred tribes might have the same sub-gods. Each family or clan might or might not have its own clan god, and each member of the family might or might not have his own personal god. All right, it's kind of like if you go into West Africa and you deal with like the Orishas, and you know, some people, you know, you have people who come up under be a child of Shango or Oshun. Number one troll, you know who Oshun is now? Craziness. But in a short, the traditional African religion respecting Almighty God and the hierarchy of lesser deities was later taken over by Christianity in the forms of patron saints and high deities who rank next to God himself. This is what things began to shift. It is said that the religion in Cuba did not include ancestor worship. It is said, so they say. This ancestor worship thing is another one of those overdone myths about Africans. Now, here's where I disagree. The Bakuba did not worship their ancestors, but neither did other Africans. If Western writers...
Hold on, Sean. Hold on. What you disagree with? Yeah. You glazed over there like a Christian.
I didn't glaze over it. Y'all stop me. I wanted to in the whole paragraph and then say what I disagree with.
Okay.
Yeah. It says, but neither did other Africans. If Western writers are using the term in the sense that one worships God, and of course they are using worship in this sense, just as they pretend not to understand the role of the numerous African deities, but understood the role of these same deities in Western civilization, if we call them patron saints in the same way as just about every other aspect of African life and history has been misrepresented and distorted. Now, I disagree with the whole, well, I understand what he's saying as far as worship in the sense, but these people did venerate their ancestors. They did.
But that's the same thing as worship. That's literally the definition.
Hold on. See, now did y'all read? Now hold on, Sean. This.
Yeah, I know these stuff not in a European sense, but I mean, I still disagree.
No. Listen, y'all got to read the next paragraph. I knew that's why I highlighted this part. I highlighted this part specifically because I knew somebody was going to disagree with it. But once you read the second, because look, I'm gonna just point this out right here. I got this highlighted. It says there was ancestor reverence, not ancestor worship. So he's saying they revered their ancestors. They didn't worship them. Now go ahead and read the second. Go ahead and read that paragraph.
Nah, but what I was going to say is what he's trying to do is he's trying to distinguish African culture, or he's trying to separate African culture and perspectives from westernized culture and perspectives when it comes to the religious tongue. Religion really at the sense of when he wrote this was really a bad word to actually use. However, in the emphasis of what he's trying to say, they did not do the things that he think people would do. And that's why he's saying how Westerners assume that they did this, that, and third, because they do confuse reverence and worship. Now it says, yet one can understand why people for whom the idea of immortality is merely a creed would find it hard to understand that the all-encompassing religious philosophy of people who actually believed in life beyond death. From this central belief, numerous other beliefs developed naturally. An important one was that the relatives who had passed or maintained a continuing interest in the welfare of those left behind. To justify and preserve and this continuum oversight of their ancestors, the living did those things that might merit ancestral approbation. There was ancestor reverence, not ancestor worship. This reverence for elders began in early life with the living and increased at the graves. Nobody expected the ancestral spirits to eat it. Only fools outside of Africa alleged that they did. What they were doing was a demonstration that the communal spirit of sharing was being maintained. Furthermore, if the ancestors approved their behavior, they were in a position to intercede on their behalf with the deities in time of crisis. That is exactly aligns with African culture and traditions in the second paragraph.
There you go. There you go. That's what I was
I
saying.
agree.
He kind of shock you. He shock you when you first read it. But once you dive into that second paragraph, and then this third one, he gonna put it all the way together.
All right, I'll let you go ahead with that one.
You agree with that second paragraph?
Like, I agree that they don't worship in the sense of what the Europeans felt, but
yeah,
I don't see nothing wrong with saying worship, because reverence is worship.
Yeah, but the way that they use it in the Western world would make, you know what I'm saying? It's only one God. It's only one thing. You know, you don't have. All right, think of it this way. You got one altar. That altar is for that one God. In African culture, this altar is for all parts of life, regarding the ancestors, regarding the deities. You know what I'm saying? As far as the culture of the people, we see this all throughout the continent, right? So you see when they go, just even we always use Kemet as an example, but we always see the offer formula made to many different people who have transitioned, right? Because the offering formula is setting the agenda, no matter who, no matter which person it is given to. You know, an offering the king gives with seer, or an offering the king, you know what I'm saying? You're paying your reverence and your respect to a particular deity, but at the same time, you're also paying your respect and your revering, or in this instance, you would say worship your ancestors, because that's what that sacrifice is for. That's what that feeding the altar is for. So you don't feed the altar in Western religion or Abrahamic faiths and beliefs. There's no feeding the altar. If a sacrifice is made, if a sacrifice is made, because they'll say, well, we got sacrifices too. But if a sacrifice is made, it's made in honor of who? It ain't made in honor of the person that just died that was a part of your relatives. It ain't in honor of the chief of the actual that was over the entire tribe or the clan. It's not in honor of you know what I'm saying? These different deities, aspects of nature that actually exist. The Abrahamic belief in the sacrifice is for one particular person, and that person only.
All right, let's go ahead.
I kind of draw the distinction, because when you say worship, in a sense, they're gonna define it totally different in African culture than Westernized culture. But I agree with what you're saying, Sute. And then I initially disagree with the first paragraph, but totally agree in the second. But the third, if you want to read it, or you want me to read it,
go ahead. We gonna go ahead. Go ahead, read that, Sean. Then we're gonna let Kofi come in. Kofi, you was late to class. I see you with your hand up, but you was late. But let's go ahead. Let's wrap this paragraph up, Sean, and we're gonna slide it over to Kofi.
The Blacks' conception of God was on a scale to a grain to be the acceptable to Western minds. They had to reduce it by using a term that is equated with paganism, primitive, backwards, and barbarian. The word is animism, which we all hate. But the historian and anthropologists are witnesses against themselves, still providing the very opposite of what they intend. In documenting animism as the chief characteristic of religion or the Blacks from remotest times, they are also documenting the fact that the Blacks' belief in the existence as well as the nature of one universal God also goes back to time immemorial. I'm gonna stop right there. Well, I can go on finish.
Well, no. Hold right there, because this one I want Kofi to come in, because Kofi deal with this animism, and I want him to touch up on some of the ancestor worship and some of that stuff as well. So go ahead, Kofi.
Misnomer.
Yeah.
Where you at, Kofi? Kofi done started eating them chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, my bad, bro. I'm talking. Well, peace to everybody, man. Peace to everybody on the panel,
man. To go in, man.
And I'm finna do, man. And peace to everybody that's watching. But yeah, I was listening. I just came in, but I heard y'all was touching on worship, and you distinguishing the two, the Western religion perspective from the African perspective. And he just kind of went in a little bit where you talk about the animism. In African tradition and custom, they believe everything has spirit or has energy. So they worship everything because they believe, even though they may say, you may look at the people in Igbo may say Chukwu is the supreme deity, right? And they talking about one single deity in particular, but they worship everything, meaning that Chukwu or whoever the creator, God is the totality of existence. God is everything. God is everything. God is the air. God is the wind. God is energy. God is the sun. So they worship.
All right, Kofi, do this for me. Go ahead and read that paragraph where Sean just ended, because I know, Sean, you wanted to touch it, but I want Kofi to go ahead and read, because exactly what you're saying is what he wrote right here, Kofi. So go ahead.
I don't even what page y'all on. You know, I just
we on 230, because you right on point. You right on point, bro. You right on point. That's why I had to stop you.
Let me flip my book.
I had to stop you.
And you want me to read where it on page 230?
Yeah, the very last paragraph. It's the last one.
And what is animism?
Bang, right there.
It says, and what is animism? As applied to African, it is the belief that the spirit or the creator or the universe, God, permeates all of his creation, living and the dead. Therefore, any object, animated or inanimated, which he's talking about movable or immovable things, may be sacrificed. The concept of God is his creation would be regarded highly civilized if expressed by Westerners in some such term as a reverence for life. Indeed, precisely the same African religion belief becomes the doctrine of Immanson of Christianity civilization. So, basically what I'm saying, God permeates in everything. Like when you deal with Western philosophy, a Western doctrine, God exists outside of his creation. And that's the distinction between African tradition or African way of life, or the Kimoyo or African traditional religion. That's the separates between the two, because in African traditions, God is the totality of existence. God exists in everything. And that's how, and this is what I tell some of my people that's wrapped up in church, how God is not separate from existence, which Western philosophy stands for. God, the creator, knows every and all things because it exists in every and all things. So when you look at African tradition, they reference or they worship everything, meaning that, if we go, but let's just go back to Kemet for a minute. They talk about Ra being the sun. So they worship Ra. You know what I'm saying? If you go to any of these systems in West Africa, whether it's the Kumi, whether it's the Odinani, whether it's the Nigerian, you got the Obuzums, you got the Vudans, you got the Orishas, and so forth. All these are different things. Some of them are different characteristics of human beings' characteristics. Some of them are nature or things in nature, and then they worship these things because a lot of these things is based off their survival. They worship the sun because they understood that the sun does so much things for them. The sun actually sustains life. So the energy from Ra, or from the rays of Ra, it helps things to grow, as long as with the water that falls from the sky. When they talk about Shu, so they revere water, they revere energy, they revere the sun, they revere the rivers, they revere things that was detrimental. I mean, not one detrimental, that was, for their survival. You know what I'm saying? Things that they feel like that was important to them, which it was. We know water was important for them. We know vegetables was important for us. We know the sun is important for the whole planet. So these types of things, they revere these things, and they understand that God is the totality of existence. God exists in everything. God knows everything because it exists in everything at the same time. So that's the separate between the two. So again, animism, they believe that movable and immovable, which he's stating here, animated and inanimated, which he's talking about movable things and immovable things has energy. You see, so everything has a spirit, everything has energy, everything in existence has energy. So I'm agreeing with what Sean's saying, you know what I'm saying? But I just wanted to break that down too, to make a distinction from they will worship everything, and they, like Sean said, they worship when according to Western philosophy or Western doctrine, when they talk about worshiping something, they only worship a singular being, which is God, the creator, himself, and nothing else. You know what I'm saying? Because they believe that God is separate from his creation. God does not exist in the trees. God did not exist in the grass. God did not exist in the animals. Even you look at any culture in Africa, they also worship animals. They revered animals because they learned from animals. They looked at animals and learned how to build in mud brick. I talk about this all the time. They learn how to hunt other prey by looking at certain animals in the way that they hunt. The lion, to be exact with one of those, you know, to be with one of those animals. So they worship everything and they believe that God exists in everything. God is the totality of existence. Am I still on?
Yeah, Kofi, that's good, man. I'm glad you brought that up. And yeah, it's crazy, man, because I deal with the animism. I deal with it in volume 3. So, you know, if y'all want to see how I touch on animism and how I bring that all together, go get y'all a copy of that volume 3, Spiritual Combat.
Yep.
And they're going in.
You get volume 1 because I talk about it in volume 1 when I talk about
right.
So with the different religions in these terms, right?
All right, so to add to it, the gist of everything is what you're getting ready to see in 231. But before you even really move to 231, you have to understand that Africans, there's no devil, there's no hell, so none of that actually exists. You will see these altars rather personal, because you remember we were saying earlier in the conversation how they did things and what they would see. You know, when we try to break down worship and an understanding for everybody that's in the listening audience, you have personal shrines, and then if you go, personal shrines are small shrines that can be in the home. If you go outside of the home or into the community, you may see a community shrine where, you know, the eldest of the elders may be pretty much remembered or revered, or you will see money thrown to them, or you may see food fed to these particular shrines. But you know, everything in African tradition is going to exist with, is going to evolve a shrine. A shrine is going to involve or encompass the earth. So it's going to be of the earth. Whatever it is going to be of the earth. Whether it's a personal shrine or outside of that, it's going to be of the earth. And every element of the earth exists in what they do when they revere, worship, feed, remember, pray, honor, cherish, in their tradition and in their culture. So overall, everything that we just lined down is the premise of all African traditions and customs, or in what we're now defining as Comorio versus spirituality and all these other things that are actually foreign and do not make up the gist of African traditions and culture. But on 231, I really didn't have much, because you start to get to see where they are trying to demonize Kuba traditions and customs. You'll start to see words like witchcraft, witch doctor. You start to see, you know, this good and evil vibe going on there. And you know that they're dealing with people in the community, or what they would call a witch doctor, you know, working with herbs at this time to aid or to protect people with, you know, with certain healing principles and herbs that he kind of understood that would help with a headache, help with a toothache. You know what I'm saying? help with certain type of pain. He was instrumental, or she was instrumental in resetting certain bones or anything like that that could help facilitate with ailing an issue or a problem. But they kind of got misnomered in the sense that because of what they were doing, and it wasn't a westernized version of what a doctor looked like. They began to be a witch doctor. You know what I'm saying? Because not only were they doing certain things to aid and assistance to the people in the community, they also were seen using, divining, being diviners in the community, calling what some say, calling upon the spirits, or telling you that you need to go and you would need to make this sacrifice to the altar and see if your offering is accepted or received. Now, you heard that in the last page we just read about, whether the ancestors or someone approved of your offer. When they talked about feeding, when Chancellor Williams talked about feeding the actual altars and things of that nature. So, you start hearing the hideous things that Europeans begin to play on these things, and that's pretty much the summary of 231. You know what I'm saying? And then they talked about at the end of 231, which was prevalent, is that disease was believed to be the result of some misdeed on the part of the individual himself, or the result of the working of an evil spirit. If widespread, the community as a whole may have sinned, either by commission or omission of something that offended either the deities or the ever watchful ancestors. Song, dance, and sacrifice were communal activities designed to reestablish the proper relationship between the people and the unseen powers. That last paragraph, in a sense, is the whole of African traditions and customs that we now call Kamoyo, is because, when they revered it in a sense of song and dance, festivals, masking ceremonies, naming ceremonies, marriage, birth, all the things that, transitioning, all played a role in the persuasiveness on how they revered their tradition, their culture, their Kamoyo. But that's it on 230.
That's what's up on that. I ain't really had nothing till towards the end, man, because they get to talking about Shayam the Great, and I like this little part in here about him, because it goes to what I always talk about, is focusing on the economics and stuff. He really wasn't trying to be a war type king, a war type general. He was more focused on the economic activities on the culture that so yeah, I ain't really got too much outside of that. I like how he was focused on economics though, but it did end up sinking him in the end when he should have been on his wartime. So I don't know if y'all got anything on that. But yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much closely wraps it up. I know I had something on 239. When you get to talking about these Europeans when they come in. Let me see. Okay, it says right here. What'd you say?
Really started 238, but it's that third paragraph. You finna get it?
Yeah. I just go straight cut to the meat and bones, man. Cause we all done read it, so shit. All right, here it goes. It says the blacks, as usual, were too busy fighting amongst themselves, like we was talking about earlier, fighting amongst ourselves, to the mark of heralds of the doom, or see the significance of their coming. Up to this time, they had been wise enough to adhere to the rule followed by most African states by rigidly barring all non-African from crossing their border. The record of over 4,000 years showed in every case where the rule of exclusion was relaxed and Asian or Europeans were admitted under whatever pretext, the ultimate fate of the blacks were sealed every single time, man. And I just love it how Chancellor Williams just every single chapter, he keeps beating that and he keep ingraining that into us, to where every time we lax on the rules, man, every time we slack, they right there, they waiting and they coming in, man. So yeah, that's it for me, fellas.
Yeah. I missed a lot, man, but a lot of people need to go back and study the Cuba Empire and who was these Cuba's empires. I mean, there's a lot of history when you're dealing with Central Africa, you know, and how the Cuba Empire was actually, you know, how it actually it was formed in 1375. You know, in these different states that make up, study these different states that actually make up the Cuba Empire, like the Angola, the Republican of the Congo. What else was it? Cabana, Northern Angola was one. Dang, it was a couple of them. I can't escape me. I mean, I'm very familiar with this Central Africa, and a bunch of these provinces that make up the Cuba empire, which he touched on, man. And it's a lot of history, you know, when you know dealing with Nzinga, information dealing with the Portuguese that I know I know Sean probably touched on the Portuguese coming in and the purpose of the Portuguese coming into Central Africa at this particular time. This was
he ain't really get into it, Kofi.
Oh, I'm surprised he didn't really.
No, I'm just messing with Sean. He talked about it. He talked about in the very beginning how they sailed. He talked about the sailing, how they sailed through there, and all that stuff. Man, he definitely touched on it.
Right. Man, so yeah, it's rich, man. Even with you know, y'all talk about the Jaga warriors on page 223.
Shit, go in. I mean, if it's something you want to
go in, but the Jaga people, those people actually ended up working for the Portuguese too. I'm like I said, I'm familiar. I got about six presentations just dealing with Central Africa in particular. And I have one distinction presentation that deals with the Jaga people, but they go by the Mbangala people. And these people actually work for the Portuguese, you know what I'm saying, to fight against the Cuba Empire, even fight against some of those other different provinces in Central Africa. You see that with the king Nzanga Nukuwu, if I'm pronouncing his name right, who was the kinsman of Queen Nzinga. And, you know, he had issues dealing with the Jaga, which they talk about, the Jagas roaming on page 123. The Jagas warriors are roaming tribes that seems to be more interested in raid destruction than seeming anything, and they were destructive people. These Mbangala people that they call the Jagas. Some people distinguish the Jaga people, the first group of people that these warriors that came in, they trying to distinguish them from these other people that they call the Jaga, but these people was all the same people. These cannibalistic warriors who scavenged through Central Africa and then struck a deal with the Portuguese and began to fight, help them fight against these different provinces, and even Queen Nzinga, and even her kinsman before her, Nzinga Nukuwu, and his other brother. I know Sean probably talked about them too when they set sail and came into Central Africa. At this time, the empires and certain dynasties, as you would say, you had like their dynasties were some writers would call houses. So you had like different houses at different particular time with different kings ruled at a particular different time and so forth and but yeah, man. I mean, I ain't gonna keep talking. I know y'all don't cover a lot of it, man. But it's I kind of like this this chapter, like I said, because I had to deal with the Cuba people, and like I said, you can come back on this channel and strong through, and you can see the presentation on the Mbangala people, the Queen Nzinga, The Cuba Empire. I go in depth on the Cuba Empire, how it was formed, those 6 provinces, which is a
This
state.
what we gonna do. This what we gonna do, man. We're gonna go ahead and end this show, and then we'll do a little after party. We talk about the Cuba because they are an interesting tribe, man. And we got some people.
Hold on. Let me make this a little more clear because Mika in the chat saying they're a tribe too. It's a
Right.
kingdom, so it's like the Masi. It's like how they all like the Masi warrior clan. Not the warrior clan, but damn man, you know what I'm talking about. The historical.
The
Masi.
Masi
Yeah.
Kingdom, which became the Masi Empire. The same thing with the Cuba
Right.
people.
It was basically a conglomerate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? A
6
whole.
provinces.
Go ahead, break it down, Kofi.
No. You're right. You're right. I mean, it became an empire. That's why I was trying to name. I couldn't remember. There were 6 provinces that came together that actually formed the Cuba empire. The same way, like you saying with the Masi, there was different states, different provinces that came together that formed the Masi kingdom, which became the Masi empire. The same way that you see with the Cuba people, these people got together and formed this great kingdom and did certain things, and then you start to see through historical record, you start to see some of the great things that this empire actually did in Central Africa, and why the Portuguese came into Africa, and even when you deal with the slavery aspect of certain things, because people have an issue when you study some of Central Africa, because we're talking about Central Africa, to be exact, because the northern, because one of the problems is Angola. And I talk about Angola too in one of the presentations, but you got Angola, you got the Republic of the Congo, Northern Congo, and a few other provinces that actually came together to form. But when you go back to them dealing with, well, we'll talk about it, man, after because I know you're ready to end the show, man. But
Yeah. Let's go ahead and end this one because this is a good topic, and that'll give you some time to get it off, Kofi. So we're gonna go ahead and end this show, y'all. We made it all the way through. We on chapter 9. Now we going to 10, y'all. We talking about the White Devils from the West. This is going to be an interesting chapter right here, and I guarantee you, this is going to be a part 1, part 2 show. So
Reed must already read the chapter.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want, and because like when we go through and we reread this book, I'm rereading it from the aspect now of what will my brother Sutek think, what will my brother Kofi think, what would Sean think. Like that's how I'm reading it now. You know what I'm saying? So I already know this is a big book. I mean, this is a big chapter, and we're gonna have to do two episodes. I already know. So y'all be ready next week. We're gonna go. We're gonna try to keep it down to 2 hours, an hour and a half. So we appreciate y'all for staying with us. We're gonna go live probably about 10 minutes. We're gonna get some time to get us something to drink, whatever. So appreciate y'all for staying with us. Go to KofiPiesideTV.com, get your books. Go to Family Connect Apparel. It's Family Connect Apparel.com and get your clothes. Get your Niger Valley Civilization stuff. Get your Kofi Pieside TV stuff. Get your Mboka family clothing stuff. Coffee and cookie stuff coming soon. We will see y'all soon. Peace.